Good afternoon. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid on this beautiful Monday afternoon. Thanks so much for tuning into our great little show here this afternoon, as we have plenty to cover with games going on as we speak. We'll get to that here in a minute. Great guests here on the show. We'll talk NBA with Gilbert McGregor. Lots happening in the association. Bill Bender will weigh in on everything happening in college hoops, and our very own Kevin Walsh joins us a bit later in the show as well to go over a plethora, it's a big word, of stories on our show today. We've got lots of news from the National Football League. We're going to have official signings coming up in a couple of days, but we're also getting a lot of big news and information, especially at the quarterback position in the National Football League. So before we get to all that, we got live action. It's very rare on NewsWire to have live action on our show. So let me preview the upcoming World Baseball Classic games, which are set to throw out the first pitch in 4 minutes from now over at Lone Depot Park, where I was last night. And I saw that game that Israel beat Nicaragua last night in person. It's been a busy week for me. Dominican Republic, yes, this is the current odds here, folks. It's sort of a joke. Yes, there's the run line 7.5 in today's game. So if you think that Israel could pull off the biggest upset in the history of the World Baseball Classic, well, then this bet is for you. Total of, is this right? 12.5. Yeah, 12.5 is the total in this one. And certainly Dominican Republic expected to fare pretty well, but who knows? You never know what could happen in these sort of tournaments. Also coming up later today, we've got Panama taking Colombia. Minus 140 are the odds there. This could be a good game later today. 8.5 is the total World Baseball Classic. First pitch set to be thrown out very shortly. So there you go. World Baseball Classic updates for you here on NewsWire. Okay, now let's move over to the National Football League. The biggest news of the day is a little bit of a strange one here. So Travis Kelce is returning to the National Football League, and apparently his next season will be played. And he does think that there is a chance, apparently, according to this report, that there's other teams other than the Kansas City Chiefs who are involved. But he's expected to return to the Chiefs. We're gonna guess that's gonna happen for the time being. But I don't know that it's we saw a lot of reports yesterday that said that he may end up leaving. Let's assume that he's back with the Chiefs for maybe one final season coming up. Kelce, of course, the minute that he retires, becomes a Pro Football Hall of Famer. But as of right now, coming off that down year, and the Chiefs did send some signals, by the way, interesting ones, by trading Trent McDuffie last week to the Rams, who extended him. Okay, now quarterback landscape in the NFL becomes very clear for the Miami Dolphins. They're searching for a new one. It's official. Tua Tagovailoa will be cut after June the 1st. The general manager of the Dolphins informed Tua this morning that he would be let go. He was the 5th overall pick in the draft. He had a really good record as a starter, but suffered from a number of injuries over the course of his career. 44-32 was his record. He did throw 59 interceptions, and so Miami is going to eat 54. Is that right? Wow. $54 million. They can send some over to me if they want. Also, the Dolphins signaling a rebuild by announcing that they're trading Minkah Fitzpatrick, who they just traded for a year ago, to the New York Jets, their rival, for a 2026 7th round pick. The Jets will sign Fitzpatrick to an extension, 3 years, $40 million. Also, the Packers are finalizing a deal that will send Rashawn Gary to the Cowboys for a late 27 round pick. Packers and Cowboys seemingly doing some pretty interesting deals lately when you consider that Micah Parsons was involved in a deal with them as well. Now, in case you missed it, over the weekend, Max Crosby, who the Raiders said they would not trade, traded him to the Baltimore Ravens for a 2026 first round pick and a 2027 first round pick as well. Ravens are playing for now, and the Raiders are playing for the future. Crosby, arguably one of the very best defensive run stoppers and pass rushers in the NFL, and he talked on his podcast about the trade.
Ooh, all right, y'all. Can't believe that this is a real thing. It's been 7 years being with the nation. Raider Nation has given me everything. My family. I've had the chance to get married, have the most beautiful daughter in the world, grow as a man, as a player, as a leader, as a human being. And one thing I could say above all else is that I gave y'all everything I got, and I have no regrets about that. I put everything into trying to win as a Raider. Damn, I'm not trying to get emotional already, but I truly want to finish when it's all said and done, in a Raiders jersey, whenever that time comes. But for the time being, it's a new day. I'm going to Baltimore.
By the way, Trent McDuffie, who was traded, as I mentioned, from the Chiefs to the Rams, has signed a new contract extension. He'll now be the highest paid cornerback in NFL history, surpassing Sauce Gardner and Derek Stingley Jr. Jordan Davis becomes the highest paid nose tackle in NFL history. The Eagles and Davis have agreed to a 3-year, $78 million contract. Khalil Mack is back with the Chargers on a 1-year deal. And Brandon Aubrey could be the highest paid kicker in the history of the NFL. They placed the $5.7 million second round tender on the restricted free agent. If another team does sign Aubrey to an offer sheet and the Cowboys don't match, they get a second round pick. Also, the Jaguars and former 7th round pick Montaric Brown have agreed on a 3-year contract. We're also getting word that Alec Pierce has signed a mega deal to stay with the Indianapolis Colts. Miami, Ohio beats Ohio in overtime. And they're 31-0 on the season. Yeah, that's right. Undefeated regular season. You want to keep these guys out? You crazy? They win 110-108. It feels like every time I'm doing a game and we're talking about this team, they're playing a close game or an overtime game and they win. Every single one of them. Here's Travis Steele on why his team should be in the big dance.
All right, then all of a sudden, nobody's taking your calls. Everybody's saying no. Or listen, we can't play you because you're not a quad. Because at that point, we were slotted to be a quad 3 team this year. They want to play quad 1s and quad 4 games. And all these numbers are slanted towards that, so we don't get the opportunities. Jeff doesn't get any opportunities. Do you think Ohio State's coming in here to play Ohio? Heck no. And I get it from their stance of why they don't, right? Because they're trying to get an at-large bid. They're trying to put their team and their program in the best position to get an at-large, which is totally understandable. But I do think they need to fix. You can make an adjustment to the net, right? You can make an adjustment to all these things, all these numbers. And again, it is what it is. You try to focus on the things you can control. I don't know if we'll get an at-large or not. I can't control that. Our AD can't control that. I do know we can control our process, right? And just continue just to stick to the course, man. And that's what we've done throughout the year. But he's totally right.
Duke gets their revenge on North Carolina, 76-61. UNC does cover as 18.5-point favorites, and the Blue Devils now head to the ACC tournament, finishing on an 8-game winning streak. Cameron Boozer had 26 points and 15 rebounds. Of course, Duke will be the number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Here's a recap of the game from John Shire and Hubert Davis on their team's performances.
I learned something today. I learned I love the fact we were in a different position tonight. And I don't love the fact we were without Pat and Caleb, obviously, with their injury. But we were tested. We had some adversity thrown our way. And we just talked about weathering the storm. You're not going to go through March without having storms and having to, weather them. And I thought we did a great job tonight. I love their talking in huddles. It's almost like I can't get a word in now. Guys are talking so much in huddles. So I don't know if I like it that much, but the way these guys talk to each other, man, is as good as I've seen. It's high level, and I think that really helped us.
You should be without Seth, Al, Caleb, or Henry. In those games, we were 12-3. With a full lineup, you were 12-3. I think. So I said we have more than enough to get it done. And I love these kids. I love the fight, the resiliency, the perseverance of this group. And I'll roll with this team and this group every day.
Michigan takes care of Michigan State for the second time this season. 90-80 was the final there. Nebraska also beat Iowa in overtime, 84-75. 6 other teams punched their ticket to the big dance this weekend. Long Island University, Tennessee State, Northern Iowa, High Point Queens, and North Dakota State. We'll be back talking some pro hoops with Gilbert McGregor. Don't go away. Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Thanks for tuning in. We didn't get to much NBA in our first 12 minutes and 22 seconds here in the show because we save it for our guest, Gilbert McGregor, who joins us covering the Suns for Phoenix Sports and also with a close eye on the rest of the National Basketball Association. And of course, he joins us weekly here on NewsWire, if not more. Gilbert, thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate you coming on to talk some hoops. Let's get started. We'll start east and then we'll go west. We'll work that way. The Celtics are feeling great right now. They beat the Cavs 109-98. They win, they cover. They were slight dogs in this game, despite Donovan Mitchell's 30 points in this one, and James Harden still playing great basketball for Cleveland. The Celtics got back Jason Tatum, his second game back, Gilbert, and he has looked the part pretty quickly here. 27 minutes, 20 points already. I mean, I was going to say maybe he needs a few weeks to get into game shape here and get ready for the playoffs, but apparently not.
That's a testament to how good of a basketball player that Jason Tatum is. And we talked about there was some rust in that game on Friday. I'm sure a lot of the nerves and adrenaline had something to do with that as well. But this is what we were thinking about the entire time as the Celtics kind of tread water and were an excellent team once they figured things out without Jason Tatum. If they were to add him back to the equation, how dangerous could they be? And we're seeing it. Going to Cleveland, the Cavs team has been playing very good basketball since acquiring James Harden and getting that win. I think this is a reminder that, listen, now it's a multiple horse race in the Eastern Conference. The Celtics are now the favorites to win the Eastern Conference, and Jason Tatum being back is that for them. It's going to be difficult for teams like New York, Cleveland, and Detroit as well to contend with them because they're figuring it all out, and they just add him seamlessly to what they've been doing all season.
Yeah, just to get him back right before the playoffs begin, got him back a lot more before that, and now the Celtics probably have to play some meaningful basketball here to get him ready for the playoffs as well. All right, speaking of meaningful basketball, both these two teams probably going to play that as well in at least the early part of the playoffs, as the Lakers yesterday upend the Knicks. A little bit of a shocker here, 110-97. With the Lakers winning and cover as 5.5-point dogs. Of course, the Knicks are going to be the better team this season. And despite Jalen Brunson's 24 points and Karl Anthony Towns going off for 25 and 16, I kind of know where the Lakers are at here. Gilbert, where are the Knicks at this point? This is like one of the most frustrating, underachieving teams in the NBA this season. I guess as we head into the playoffs, I would be concerned in a 7-game series that they could lose or beat anybody at this point.
That's basically a great way to sum it up, Craig. You know, it's funny because LeBron James was not even available for the Lakers, and they're so unpredictable. And the Knicks, you think they just need to show up and handle their business, take care of their business, and they will be fine in that one, especially coming off of a win earlier in the weekend. They got a good win over the Spurs. So thinking about this Knicks team, they're just kind of strange, and it's very odd to see where they are right now. I'm sure they'll bounce back. They're still in LA. I think they play the Clippers tonight, but they didn't get much or anything, at least from the scoring front from Mikal Bridges, and I think that's kind of where things fell apart. They played Jordan Clarkson for the first time in a long time, and he was able to score a little bit off the bench, so it's late in the season, but it seems like they're still figuring out their rotations and how things need to be for them to be successful in the postseason. And that's a big concern because you probably should have it figured out by now if there are any injuries and players you're trying to work back into the lineup.
Yeah, hard to predict the Knicks because you could see them beating anybody, you know, and that's kind of the dynamic of their team this season, but they've been losing to other teams as well. Okay, let's take a look at some games tonight in the NBA as we close in on the playoffs here. We've got the Thunder taking on the Nuggets, maybe a finals preview in the West. It's possible. OKC, 7-point favorites tonight. Total 231.5. Gilbert, do you have any lean between these two standout teams tonight?
I like the Thunder in this game. Jamal Murray's status is up in the air for the Nuggets. He sprained his ankle over the weekend, and the Nuggets have been stumbling a little bit. They've struggled a little bit. They got Aaron Gordon back into the lineup, but they're still without a few of their guys. And seems like all season we've been waiting for the Nuggets to take a step back because they've played through so many injuries and dealt with so much adversity, and it's finally happening. They fall into 6th in the Western Conference. It's not necessarily a free fall, but it's a very tough week upcoming for them. They play the Thunder, the Spurs, and the Rockets this week. So I like the Thunder in this game, even though they're still working guys back in the lineup. I think they're going to get A.J. Mitchell back tonight. So OKC, it's an MVP statement for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander also.
Speaking of which, I don't know if they need an MVP statement according to the FanDuel Sportsbook. I'll get to that here in a minute because, I mean, just take a look at these odds here, Gilbert. I mean, what would you even think to bet here? Cade Cunningham has now fallen all the way back to 17-1 after Detroit's falling on their face here in the last week. And we know Wemby's had a great year, but he's not going to win the MVP. So it's a two-man race. But is it really beyond SGA missing 2-3 games? I think that's kind of the only way that I could even see the 6-1 coming close. I don't think I could pull the trigger here.
Basically, yes. The games played situation is something to continue to monitor, and I think that's why, especially because it impacts Jokic and Shea. So if you are thinking about Cade, which seems like Cade has kind of fallen off, as you mentioned, especially with the Pistons coming back down to earth, relatively speaking, Wemby might be the other guy who you think about, and that's literally if you just keep your eye on these games missed and if that's going to happen and impact Shea or Jokic. But it does feel like these teams are going to try to get their guys across that finish line so they can get their just due and be in MVP conversations. But Jokic has 0 games that he can miss, and Shea only has a few games that he can miss after this, maybe one more for Jokic. So that's really all it is that would lead to me picking anybody other than those two to win MVP.
All right, one more game preview, and then we'll break and come back and do a little odds to win it all here and win the conference. Okay, so catch me up here on this one. I was at 2 baseball games yesterday, one in Jupiter, one in Miami. I think I saw yesterday and this morning doing my research here that the 76ers had a major injury yesterday. The Cavs are 12.5-point favorites. The total is 227.5. The question that I would have for you at this point is, Gilbert, where are the Sixers' heads right now going into this for the remainder of the season?
It's been tough for them. Talk about injury adversity. You've been dealing with Joel Embiid in and out of the lineup, Paul George's suspension, and now Tyrese Maxey goes down with an injury. So it's almost like the Sixers are a team who have all the talent, but everything has to go right for them to make the most of it. And as you can tell, things have not been going right for them. So they're going to be searching for answers, especially when the team is missing their offensive engine like Tyrese Maxey. So I think the spread is evident of that. And I like the Cavaliers, especially trying to bounce back from that loss to the Celtics yesterday.
30 points for Mitchell in the loss. We'll see if he can go off again tonight. We're going to keep Gilbert around here for another 5 minutes or so and go over some of the NBA's odds to win the conferences. You're watching NewsWire here on SportsGrid on this Monday, and we'll be right back after these messages. Don't go away. Gilbert McGregor is kind enough to spend a few more minutes with us before he goes off into his NBA preview world. And you can catch a lot of Suns coverage with Gilbert all season long if you're watching on the West Coast, Phoenix, anywhere else. Make sure you get locked into Gilbert all season long, pre, post game. He's got you covered. Suns, I don't think, are going to win the West, but just for obligatory reasons, we'll show them on our screen here. As you can see, bottom. But again, he's pragmatic about it. He understands. Oklahoma City's the favorite. San Antonio has fallen back, Gilbert, to plus 440. Denver has moved up to plus 480. And then at that point, it would be a stunner, I think, if anybody else won. So I'll break it down to with you like this here, Gilbert. Who is the best team you think that has a shot to beat Oklahoma City? I'm well aware of the Spurs' success against the Thunder, but is there another team in the conference in a 7-game series that can take them out west?
Well, outside of the Spurs, who we talked about, have had their number this regular season. I look at Denver, and I know last segment I talked about the Nuggets and their injury woes that they've dealt with, but they do have Nikola Jokic, and that is the ultimate difference maker in any 7-game series. We saw it last year against a Thunder team that was better because they were healthier last year. Now, if the Thunder can get healthy in this last month of the season, they're probably on paper better than they were last year, but we have not seen that yet. And thinking about the fact that there's a little bit of animosity between those two teams, things got heated last time these two teams played. Having Nikola Jokic is just one thing that no team in the NBA can contend with. So if he decides to dominate a 7-game series, which we've seen him do before, they have a chance. I like the Timberwolves as like maybe a dark horse. They've been to the Western Conference Finals 2 years in a row, and they've been playing pretty good basketball, especially after the All-Star break. But it really does feel like it's between those top 3 teams, because after that,
Agreed.
you look at Houston, Minnesota, LA, Phoenix, teams that have flaws that they don't have a player like Nikola Jokic to kind of make up for those flaws. And I think that's what separates those top 3 teams from the rest of the Western Conference.
East a little bit different. I think we would agree. Boston now a prohibitive favorite to win. They've moved up to plus 190. They were about even with Cleveland for the majority of the season, but now that Tatum has come back, they've jumped up. Knicks interesting at plus 450 because, again, they could beat anybody. They could also get swept in the first round. We don't know. Detroit has taken their lumps lately. The only team that's jumped up over the last week, Gilbert, has been the Miami Heat. They're now 40-1 after beating Detroit yesterday and then winning a bunch of games this week. But, realistically speaking, it would seemingly be doubtful. So Boston, Cleveland, New York, Detroit. Charlotte's had a couple of big winning streaks this season. What do you make of the East?
First of all, it's just wild to see Charlotte with the 5th best odds up there. That's good to see for the hometown and good to see for that Hornets team doing some good things. But it's interesting. The Celtics talking about just Jason Tatum making that much of a difference, and it makes complete sense. I think that, we were expecting to see Russ, as we discussed a little bit, but it took him that fast to shake that rust off and get back to being that. He's not necessarily playing at an all NBA level yet, but I think that you would take this version of Jason Tatum over 80 to 90% of the rest of the NBA. And he's got a runway to round himself into form. The playoffs are about a month away, and this is what you need to do. You need to understand how he's going to fit in with this new Celtics team, because there's been a lot of roster turnover with the Celtics, and he is one of the most malleable stars in the NBA, and he's making it work. Jaylen Brown playing at an MVP level for the Celtics team as well. They've done it before. This core has, at least. So it's going to be hard to eliminate them from the playoffs, because this is a group that knows how to do it. The Pistons have their flaws. Can they shake them off? Can they build some confidence going into the playoffs? That's going to be big to see. The Cavaliers, we know who they are. They're second on here. And the big question is, can James Harden do it and sustain it throughout a playoff run? We know Donovan Mitchell can, but what kind of support is he going to get? And can they stay healthy? And the Knicks are the biggest question mark, because you can get the world-beating Knicks and they look like the best team in the world, or you can get the Knicks who look like they can lose to anybody. So it makes the Eastern Conference super intriguing down the stretch. But when it comes to having those questions, the Celtics' biggest question is, can Jason Tatum do it and sustain it for a playoff run? And I think the answer, based on what we're seeing, is probably yes.
Yes, I would agree, Gilbert. Real quick, 30 seconds. I got to get to a big story in the NFL real quick. So let's just take a look at the odds to win the NBA championship real quick. Plus 135 OKC, Boston 6-1, San Antonio 7.5-1. Give me 30 seconds on that.
Feels like the Thunder's title to lose, but at the same time, it's the reason we have not seen a team repeat in this NBA in such a long time. So, anything could happen. I think that if they don't win it all, they aren't making it out of the Western Conference. If the Thunder can get to the finals, they'll win it again. So it's going to be somebody like San Antonio or Denver that makes that run and eliminates Oklahoma City before it gets to the finals. Other than that, I think Thunder are going to make it to the finals and win it all.
All right, Gilbert, thanks again for coming on. Really appreciate it. Breaking news from the National Football League. The Kansas City Chiefs have signed running back, or will sign running back, Kenneth Walker, who was the star, of course, in the Super Bowl for the Seattle Seahawks. Walker takes over as RB1 in KC. We'll be right back. Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We got Bill Bender from Sporting News. We're going to talk some hoops with Bill ahead of the NCAA tournament and ahead of course, the conference tournaments, which are currently underway. Let's bring in Bill from Sporting News, and you can read all of his columns at sportingnews.com. Bill, we've got 6 teams punching their ticket to the NCAA tournament yesterday. Let's go through them, and some new names headed to the field of, what is it, 68 or 72? I can't keep up. Is it 68 at this point? Is it 86? Yeah. 68, okay. Long Island University, how about that? Tennessee State, Northern Iowa, seen them before. High Point, Queens, and North Dakota State are all headed to the big dance. Give any of these teams maybe a 12 seed, 13 seed, any shot for that? Or is it all 16, 15, 14?
Well, I think Northern Iowa will be a higher seeded team, maybe in that 12 to 13 range that some people might latch on to based on how they played in their conference tournament. That's what you watch these games for, try to spot a 12 or a 13, and the way that they played, like I said, in that tournament was well. North Dakota State's been in our field all season, and they went out and backed it up in the Summit League final against North Dakota. So those are a couple teams to keep an eye on. High Point, obviously, won a ton of games. Anytime you have a record that good, it's dangerous, but they'll probably be on that 14, maybe 13 line after winning the Big South Conference.
Let's get to, of course, the Big Ten. And Michigan took care of Michigan State, and it was a 10-point game, and the line was a little bit more than that. But let's just be honest at this point. The Wolverines were better than the Spartans this season. And so 90-80 the final, regardless of how well Jeremy Fears has played all season, they haven't been able to solve them. And so naturally, Michigan is a couple of wins away from being, as they suspected, either the top seed overall in the tournament or close to it.
Yeah, I think Michigan and Duke are locks to be number ones right now, no matter what happens this week. I think Duke obviously took care of business. Those two teams played a high-level game a couple weeks ago in Washington, D.C. And, Michigan, despite having their big guys in foul trouble early in this game, they were able to recalibrate in the second half, win at home. I think the most impressive stat about Michigan this year was the fact that they didn't lose a Big Ten road game. That's really hard to do. And think about it. They went to Mackey at Purdue and Breslin, Michigan State, went to Iowa last week and survived a scare. They're built for March, and despite the injury to LJ Kaysen, they're a really good bet to make the Final Four.
Now, as far as the MAC is concerned, this is the one that I know that you're watching the closest, Bill, like everybody else. And it's been the story of the basketball season, honestly. The disrespect for Miami, Ohio. Look at that. They're not even the favorites to win the conference tournament after going 31-0. It is Akron, minus 125. Of course, probably going to be one of those two teams, Akron or Miami winning. But if you like Kent State, they're 11-1. How do you see this playing out?
Well, I think the reason for that is those two teams on January 3rd, Akron lost a 76-73 game against the Red Hawks, so they know that they can play with them. My Bobcats, the alma mater, took Miami to the limit Friday night, didn't they? What a game, sending that game to overtime and had a couple chance to win. Miami obviously, pulls it out, and their players had something to say about it afterward. But I think the key for Miami is their balance. When you have four players that score 10 or more points, when you shoot the ball, you have four regular players that shoot 40% or better from three-point range. So if they're on in the tournament, they can make that. I think they're in no matter what happens in the MAC tournament. And so if you're a team looking to get off the bubble, you're not rooting for Akron here or Kent State or Ohio.
Right.
You're hoping Miami closes that out, gets to 34-0, and gets to the tournament that way.
Yeah, it would be ridiculous if they did not get in, despite their KenPom ranking, which has them outside of the field of 68 at 88. But they are 31-0 on the season. They've been the story of college basketball, and I think that publicly it's obvious at this point people want to see them play in the NCAA tournament. Okay, Horizon League championship game, Bill. Horizon League championship game. Two teams that I've seen in the NCAA tournament before. It's Robert Morris, minus 4.5, taking on Detroit, a total of 147.5 in this game. I have not seen either team play 1 second this season, Bill, so I defer to you.
Yeah, obviously that'll be a good game. I think it's a semifinal there, and Wright State's still my pick to win this conference. But in that one, might go with Robert Morris here. Obviously in this tournament, like you said, it's tough to break down, but I kind of like them in that matchup. But being the heavy favorite, you're not going to get much value out of it.
All right, now let's look at the Big 12 conference tournament here, Bill. This is a little bit tougher because Arizona's been one of the best teams in college basketball this season, but they did have that little hiccup, and Houston has now jumped to plus 200 to potentially win. I think that this is a little bit more wide open than the odds would show. Iowa State's been really good. Kansas is always built for March. Beyond that, a little bit dicey, I think, at Texas Tech. But I think any of those top four could win it. What about you?
Right. And when you have a bracket like that, so Houston has a lot to gain. If they win this tournament, there's a chance, depending on what Florida and UConn do in their conference tournaments, that Houston could snag a number one seed. You take it all the way down to a team like Kansas. They're hit or miss in some ways, right? But if Darren Peterson's on, they could win this, and they've had a history of doing that. I would go all the way down to like BYU, even though they've been a little bit different since Richie Saunders was out. But anytime you have a guy like AJ DeBonsa who can score 25 every single night, they could make a run. So it is a wide open tournament. Now to these power conference tournaments, it's probably going to be the most entertaining, and not just because of that weird court they have with the lighting where they can change. That thing gives me a headache just looking at it. But it'll be a very entertaining tournament, and I would keep an eye on Houston, because if they can win with that style of play that they have, they will have a shot at the number one seed.
Okay, so that being said, they're 10-1 to win the championship, and they're one of those teams that are just outside a potential one seed. But don't look now, the Gators appear to be right back in the mix to win the national championship, as they won last year, obviously, Bill. They're 7-1 now to win this year. Arizona is plus 550, Duke plus 360, Michigan plus 340. Those are the odds to win it all.
Yeah, and it really comes down to what you like. Do you like the depth of Michigan scoring, their ability? They have 8 guys that can put the ball in the basket. Do you like Florida's front line with Condon and Houck? They've been awesome all season. And it seems like even with one guy out or one guy has an off night, the other guy has a big game, and they're playing as good as anybody right now. Duke had a couple injuries on Saturday to keep an eye on. And if not, that's going to put a lot more pressure on Cameron Boozer to be outstanding in the tournament. And then it's take your pick out of Arizona and Houston. Houston, as they've proven over the years, and they proved last year, Craig, I don't know how you feel about this, but sometimes people don't bet on them because of the style they play. But when it comes down to that matchups and that ugly defensive style, they can go in and beat anybody in the tournament. They did that last year against Duke. So I don't think they're going to be afraid of anybody if they get into March. They're a little bit of an outside sleeper in air quotes, being a number 2 seed.
Yeah, and March is here, Bill. It's time to get ready. NCAA tournament around the corner. We're going to have college basketball live during our show on NewsWire. Can't wait for that starting tomorrow. All right, Bill, thanks again. Appreciate you coming on, and we'll catch up again soon. Appreciate it.
Hey, anytime. Thanks so much for having me on, Craig.
All right, Michael DeCourcy will also be on with us from Sporting News, talking some college basketball as well. All right, couple of quick updates here. World Baseball Classic underway at Lone Depot Park. For those of you who bet the Dominican Republic today, you had to lay big odds, but I guess it appeared to be worth it. We are not even in the second inning, and the Dominican Republic leads Israel by a score of 5-0. That's a live score right now from the WBC. Also, real quick, big news from the National Football League. We've got a mega signing here. The new running back of the Kansas City Chiefs is going to be Kenneth Walker. He departs after winning a Super Bowl in Seattle, and he's the new running back on the Kansas City Chiefs. KC has just had a really tough time finding anybody to run the ball effectively through the years. Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt, feels like they've just been dialing back old retread running backs. Not the case now. Walker heads to Kansas City on a multi-year deal. Seattle, of course, will just turn that ball over to Zach Charbonnet, and he'll be their running back. But the Chiefs have added a Super Bowl winning running back to their arsenal next season. Kevin Walsh is up next with us. Stay on the grid. Don't go away. All right, fine. Later today, Kevin Walsh is up with Game Time Decisions, and he's going to have a lot to cover. I have a feeling between now and the time his show begins, there's going to be some significant movement in the National Football League. We're already seeing some of it. So before we get to some NBA stuff, let's bring in Kevin because maybe we can get ahead of some of these odds. I don't know, but this definitely caught my eye this morning, Kevin, to see that Kenneth Walker has opted to leave Seattle, which is not surprising. I guess a little surprising that the Chiefs, honestly, Kevin, have admitted their failures of the past, right? Like, this is the signal we screwed up the last few years. We finally are going to go get ourselves a premium RB1. They signed Kenneth Walker. I think, Kevin, honestly, the Chiefs should not be done here. I think they should get themselves a premium or a wide receiver one as well. But what do you make of this Chiefs offseason? Looks like Walker is there, Kelsey potentially back as well.
So the Walker move in a vacuum is a good move. It helps a running back room that was embarrassing, I think, honestly, for most of the season. But overall, I don't look at the Chiefs right now as a team that is as close as they were entering last season when we talk about their ultimate goal of a Super Bowl. It was a very underwhelming defense. They traded away the best player in Trent McDuffie. It wasn't a bad deal. They got a great return for McDuffie. I don't think there's much of an argument that it's going to make them better this season. You mentioned the pass catching room, right? There's also some good news that Travis Kelce is going to be back. Travis Kelce is a first ballot Hall of Famer who is nowhere near the player that made him a first ballot Hall of Famer. Craig mentions getting a wide receiver one because their actual wide receiver one, I don't want to make light of the situation, like as likely to be in a courtroom as on the field, it feels like at this point with Rashee Rice. Xavier Worthy hasn't broke out the way that they wanted to. The offensive line still has a couple of question marks. And oh, by the way, Patrick Mahomes is off of an ACL tear and may not be ready to go to start next season. So I think Kenneth Walker is a talented running back, and I am excited about what he can bring to Kansas City. But man, they just paid a pretty penny for a running back, Craig, who isn't entering a situation. If this was last year and it was the same setup, right, with Ken Walker, I think we'd feel a lot better than the situation Ken Walker is going into right now.
Yeah, I think that's all fair, and I don't think Kansas City is done. That would be my opinion. We'll see, but I didn't think the last few years that they would be resting on guys like Sky Moore, which they were, and just sort of were like, we're going to go to war with this, and it didn't end up working out. A couple of other notes here, and then we'll get into some baseball and some NBA as well. The Dolphins, unsurprisingly, said farewell to Tua Tagovailoa today. They'll pay him a lot of money to go away, and their message is very clear. They're headed toward a rebuild, but they really stamped that home today, not just by the news with Tua, but also the guy that they traded for, Kevin, last year, and Minkah Fitzpatrick. They traded him away to today. So I do think when you do something like this, and especially, by the way, trading a guy in the same division, what do you think, Kevin? The Dolphins' season win total on FanDuel and DraftKings, is it the lowest in the NFL next season? It's got to be close, or maybe the Raiders, but it's got to be close.
Oh, I anticipate the Raiders will be ahead of them by the time the dust settles on their offseason, right? Craig, when they do draft Mendoza, acquiring the 14th pick from Baltimore, they are expected to make a splash or two, we would think, during this free agency cycle as well. I tend to believe that there is almost a market inefficiency in the National Football League around tanking. I know it's a disgusting word. Nobody likes it, right? It's the NBA's big issue. Nobody does it in the NFL. But it means if you do it, you might be on your own. If you are willing to be awful, you will be awful. And Miami is setting themselves up, Craig, to potentially have no worse than the 4th overall pick in next year's draft and a really good chance to get the 1st overall pick in a draft class, Craig, that is anticipated to be historic. It's not just the quarterback position, right? People have been dying to draft Jeremiah Smith, the Ohio State wide receiver, for years and years and years. You get, Darian Mensah over in Miami, Lenore Sellers back at South Carolina, Arch out of Texas, CJ Carr out of Notre Dame. So for Miami, yeah, take all the dead cap in the world. Who cares? Being truly awful this year is likely in their best interest.
Let's shift over from some football to some baseball, Kevin, and I'm sure you and I will chop that up a little bit later tonight as well. We've got a current game going on right now, two games actually. One at Lone Depot Park, where I was last night watching Israel take care of Nicaragua. Unfortunately, today, Dominican Republic is taking care of them very quickly, 5-0 already, as Fernando Tatis Jr. has hit a grand slam. But one of the games coming up later today is honestly a game that's a little intriguing because Mexico has played tight with Team USA in the past. USA is minus 3.5 on the run line with a total of 11.5. You have any opinion on the way Team USA has played thus far? Some people think they don't look as good as they should.
It's relative to expectations, right? They gave up way more runs than anticipated in the opening game against Brazil, and they didn't score anywhere near as many runs as anticipated in the game against Great Britain. And I think that those are fair expectations. And I was watching, I mean, I think the World Baseball Classic has been incredible. You've kind of told us, Craig, like this is going to take over. And I think it has.
I told you.
I think, I think, Craig, like, I think it's been very
wait till next
forceful,
week.
right? Yeah. I think it's been really, really fun. And so I was watching the broadcast and they had said, like, look, we're not trying to make excuses, but some people have said, it is almost like spring training. Like this isn't necessarily going to be in form Aaron Judge or Bobby Witt or Bryce Harper. And that is, while that is logical and valid, that doesn't make anybody feel any better for the remainder of this tournament. They're not going to get into in-season form. So they're going to have to click to the degree that people want. And what I think this game here today against Mexico offers up, Craig, is probably a true test of just what level are they at. The way that the pool sets up, Craig, I don't think we would call it a must win. They'd be disappointed to drop the game, right? But it's not as if it's going to be such a nightmare. They have to play now in a different spot. I think it sets up nicely.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the DR and Venezuela are going to play super hard. If USA thinks they're just going to get by, that's not going to happen. Kevin, we'll talk later tonight. Thanks again. We only have a few minutes left here in the show, so there's simply just not enough time for us to go over all these NFL signings and analyze them in time. So we'll do it later on Game Time Decisions, and we'll also recap it tomorrow on the show as well. But I'm going to give you a couple that I'm seeing here as we get ready to wrap it up. First of all, and probably most importantly, the Dolphins have a new quarterback. It is Malik Willis. That's being reported by ESPN and NFL Network. Willis, of course, will get a multi-year deal, and he will take the place of Tua Tagovailoa. A lot of folks thought Miami was headed the other way. I don't know. When you sign a guy like this, it feels like you're headed the other way. Also, I'm seeing Michael Pittman signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Is that true? I'm seeing that as well here. And also, Jalen Phillips signs a 4-year contract, and he's going to the Carolina Panthers at $30 million per season. The money in the NFL is just unlimited money. I don't care what they say about the salary cap. All right, so that's just a few. All right, let's wrap up the show. We've got another quarterback, maybe potentially looking for greener pastures. Very interesting one here. We'll hit on some UFC and also a whole lot more as we wrap up this edition of NewsWire with some last licks. So this day and age, when you are looking at things online, just being honest, and I'm seeing pictures, I don't know if they're real or not. I almost have stopped like the scrolling and stuff on Twitter and Instagram just because everything I see, I have to question if it is real. So this is a photo that apparently is real. Now, I cannot verify it, but that's why I have Chris producing the show to tell me that this is legitimate. Joe Burrow in Las Vegas for UFC 326 was spotted with actress Jessica Alba, who is clearly one of the most popular actresses of the last 2 decades and also a lot older than Joe Burrow. Alba, who in the tabloids is supremely popular. Again, recently I think went through some sort of marital issue or divorce, if I'm not mistaken. But Joe Burrow definitely, if this is the case, has definitely found a new, what would you say? I was going to say tight end. That's not right. I was saying, has found a new friend at the poker table. I said it anyway. I don't care. We're streaming online. I'll say it. All right, let's move on. Please. How did this even show up today? All right, let's go to UFC Freedom Card 250. This is going to be really interesting because they're going to do this at the White House. They made this announcement yesterday, Sunday, June 14th. Let me give you the rundown here. We have a lightweight championship with Ila Topuria against Justin Gaethje. Interim heavyweight champion Alex Pereira takes on Cyril Gane. Bantamweight bout, Sean O'Malley fights off Eamon Zahabi. Lightweight, Mauricio Ruffy against Michael Chandler. Middleweight bout, Bo Nickel against Kyle Daukus. And featherweight, Diego Lopez against Steve Garcia. There's a lot of names I just rolled off that you have no idea who they are, especially if you don't watch UFC, and that's fine because I don't watch it also. But the thing is what makes this story interesting is because they're actually going to be fighting at the White House. Yes, the actual White House, President of the United States and all. They've talked about doing this previously, and they're actually going to go through with it. It's UFC 250. They're calling it UFC Freedom 250 coming up in June. How about this one? There is someone that's seemingly seeing the future on Twitter at Brayton J. Wilson back in 2018 said the following. Had a guy who called himself a psychic, called me 3 times today. He told me the Bills will win the Super Bowl in 2027 and the Sabres will win the Stanley Cup in 2026. Take that for what it's worth. Well, the Buffalo Sabres are the hottest team in hockey right now. They've won 7 straight. They're first in the Atlantic, and they're 18-1 to win the Stanley Cup. Maybe he was right. The Buffalo Bills, meanwhile, traded for a new number 1 wide receiver in DJ Moore last week, and the Bills are currently among the favorites to win the East. But I think that when DraftKings Sportsbook posted this over the weekend, they didn't realize that Max Crosby was going to sign with the Ravens and that Kenneth Walker was going to sign with the Chiefs. And we literally have not had 10% of NFL free agency yet. So while this is fun and it's cool and it's interesting and maybe this guy will be right, I doubt it. I doubt it because we haven't even gotten through the end of free agency. Look at what has gone on today in the National Football League. Wild. So I don't know. What is the bigger story today? Is it Kenneth Walker going to Kansas City? Is it Malik Willis, the new quarterback with the Miami Dolphins? Is it the Dolphins saying farewell to Tua? Is it Jalen Phillips signing this deal? Alec Pierce, I didn't even get into him today. He signed with the Indianapolis Colts. Michael Pittman goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's a lot to catch up on. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to say goodbye for the day. And then I'll be back later for a few minutes with Kevin Walsh with you. But of course, we'll recap everything that happened in the National Football League tomorrow. Thanks again to Gilbert McGregor. Thanks to Kevin for coming on the show as well. And thanks to you for watching our program today. Thanks to Tommy for directing and for Chris Kofsky, our producer. I'm Craig Mish. Enjoy the rest of your Monday here on Sports Grid. See you tomorrow.